Welcome to the Road to Redemption podcast with your host, Cam Williamson. Each week, Cam sets out to shatter the labels and stigmas associated with mental health awareness by giving life lessons and raw overviews of events happening around the world.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the Road to Redemption podcast. I'm, as always, your host, Cam Williamson.
Yeah.
As you can tell, I'm having a little issue getting settled here, getting comfy. It's been a rough couple days for your boy. Struggling mentally, just with some of my own stuff that I think is perfectly fitting for today as someone who has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and my goal always being to shatter labels and stigmas, negative ones, and raise awareness to the real challenges and how it affects people's lives when they suffer from things. And I oftentimes try to pull from my own experiences if I can, because I think that's it. You should criticize yourself if possible and not just other people, right? So let's get into it. I took a lot of notes. I've been researching it a lot over the last couple of days. So let's talk about what it takes to be diagnosed as bipolar. There's two different types of bipolar disorder, bipolar 1, bipolar 2. And then we have borderline personality disorder, which is oftentimes confused with bipolar disorder. And oftentimes there's a misunderstanding throughout. Most people don't even know there's two types of bipolar, what the differences are, and then let alone that there's borderline personality disorder. So let's get into it. To be diagnosed with bipolar disorder, the person has to have extreme highs and lows, or this is what they're looking for. Activity level changes severely, sleep patterns change rapidly, behavior change. Now, fun fact from the doctor I was listening to on MedCircle, he was saying bipolar patients cannot be given antidepressants due to causing manic episodes, right? I had a theory that when I was on Zoloft, that I was starting to have more issues with impulse control, and I talked to my therapist about that. And I kind of gave him a warning, like, hey, I noticed that buffer in my head is starting to go away between having a thought and reacting to that thought. Since starting the medicine, that is getting kind of slippery for me. And then I fell into what I believe was a manic episode back around July where I relapsed and threw my life into a real frenzy, but it was weird because I felt it coming. I was able to be semi-aware that it was happening. But while you're in it, as the person who's suffering from it, you're able to rationalize all the thoughts you have, right? So like when you're having mental health challenges, it's a challenge because you oftentimes don't realize it until it's caused such massive issues for you. And I think that was a big part of my problem. I started antidepressants trying to fix just solely the depression, and I hadn't been diagnosed as bipolar yet. And then through the altering of my treatment plans, we found out, hey, this is what's going on. So there's that. All right. So for bipolar 1, the key, right, to bipolar 1 is mania, or a manic state. What is a manic state? It's elevated mood for 7 days or more with symptoms of that elevated more for the majority of those days, right? You're distracted, impulsive, you have grandiose type ideas of not only yourself, but maybe your abilities. Flight of ideas, just being, you can't stay on topic, right? Now, not necessarily that you can't stick to a topic, but we've all been talking to people that start somewhere, they hit a million different checkpoints just to get to the end and go, oh, you could have summed that up so much easier, right? It's because their brain is working in overdrive trying to get out all their ideas all at once, and they're not able to calm down and articulate it. Agitation or activity level increase, sleep issues, they maybe don't need to sleep, rapid pressure speech, so speaking so fast that they're tripping over their words, kind of like me right now where I'm trying so hard to read all this, process it, and kick it back out all at the same time. That's why I think a lot of people with bipolar disorder get stressed out with scholastic stuff. It's a lot of judgment. It's a lot of fear, right? A lot of bipolar stuff stems from genetics. That's a big part. Bipolar 1 is in your genes. It's hereditary. That's going to be an important thing later on. Need 3 for 7. You need 3 of those things for 7 days straight, and it has to happen for the majority of those 7 days, right? Cannot be caused by medical illness. So any of those symptoms cannot be caused by another medical illness or psychiatric issue. So that's a big one. In all mental health, there's a disclaimer at the bottom of the manual used to diagnose patients. Oh, see, now that I addressed it, I can't talk. Used to diagnose patients is there's always a little disclaimer at the bottom that you cannot diagnose this patient with this disorder if it's possible that what you're seeing could be caused by another disorder. And we already know, holy crap, some of these blend so well together, it's hard to decipher the two. So then we get into, there's no depressive episode needed, right? So oftentimes we think as people, it's people bouncing from highs to lows, highs to lows, highs to lows, highs to lows, and it's kind of unmanageable, where necessarily this depressive episode doesn't need to happen. Now, that doesn't mean the person can't be depressed, but it just means that this episode of time where they spin down in the dumps, not in this manic state. We're looking for the mania or the manic state of being for bipolar 1, right? So bipolar 2 is hypomania. Length of time is 4 days. You're looking for 3 of the things on the prior list. Hypomania doesn't become as severe as bipolar 1. So like in my situation, my manic episode led to me being hospitalized, me being put on a 48-hour psychiatric hold in the hospital for a suicide watch. I relapsed on alcohol after 5 years of sobriety. So I put my life, my family, my freedom, everything. I risked it all for these ideas that I had in my head and that I was clinging on to in the time of real mental despair. So yes, that is definitely manic. And those are the type of actions you're looking for when you're looking to actually see, because here's the thing, you're looking for the brain function. You're not judging the person based off what happened. You're looking for the brain function. Would a rational, well-working brain make that decision? No. Why not? Were they acting impulsively? Were they acting on a dopamine surge? Were they acting on a serotonin plummet? Why did this brain react the way that it did? The meat body just acted out the idea. Why did the brain react the way it did? And that's the keys to deciphering between them, right? You do have a depressive phase, a few weeks or severely depressed for a couple, usually for bipolar 2, this is where we're looking at the severe lows now. So you're depressed for weeks at a time, not just having a bad day. And then we get into the common, lack of interest, sleep issues, stuff like that. There's no level of regularity to bipolar 2, where in bipolar 1, and then we'll get into borderline personality disorder. In bipolar 1, there's no way to tell when someone's going to have an episode, but with bipolar 1, if you do enough self-analysis, you can kind of see these patterns. For me, it's every 5 years. I have big milestones with manic episodes every 5 years, seemingly in my life. But every 6 months, things start to get a little squirrely. Not as far as I start going crazy or anything, but I notice old patterns try to repeat themselves about every 6 months for me. So maybe it's just coming into new phases of the year, remind me of certain times in my life, and I just haven't worked through some of that yet. I'm not sure. But whatever it is, those are the 2 indicators I now have to go, okay, hey, that time's coming up. We really got to watch and make sure that we're doing our meditation and doing our yoga and staying on track of our to-do list for the day. as well as still trying to be kind and, develop a message and develop a brand and chase your dreams and do all these things. It's all about balance, right? And you can be chasing balance at all times, which I think we should be, and still struggle with the issues that I struggle with. It doesn't mean that you're sentenced to forever, because I have bipolar disorder, BP1, and I've been diagnosed with that. It's because of the actions of my life. People have always looked at my actions and gone, well, why the fuck would you do that? Why would you do that? Especially, you've gotten in trouble for DUIs 3 times. You didn't learn after the first one? You fucking idiot. But it's that thing where in the moment of situations, your brain doesn't think that way. It doesn't process it, because if it did, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't then sit in a courtroom again going, how the fuck did I get here again? It's only by the grace of the power of the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, and just the times being what they are, which is why I'm so passionate about it, that I didn't get locked away for 10 years. Like some scum of the earth dirtball. My actions say that I probably should have. But I had people that were willing to look at me for who I was, not the terrible thing I did in the moment. That's why I want to always try to give empathy to people. I can't always give sympathy to people, but I can give you empathy, and I can understand maybe why you made some terrible decisions. Because I can understand that you maybe weren't acting within all of your faculties, but you somehow thought you might have been doing the right thing and just caused a terrible occurrence to happen. But that doesn't mean that you can't take responsibility for that. And that's a perfect segue into, give me 1 second. It's a perfect segue into borderline personality disorder, because the biggest difference, and I was explaining this to somebody this morning, and I think it's important to touch on this, right? So bipolar disorder, that's a disorder. Then you have borderline personality disorder. So that is a part of a person's personality. That means what? And this is where the 2 distinctions are going to be made. Someone who suffers from bipolar disorder, these manic episodes cause their brain to not understand necessarily the ramifications of their actions, because they're just running on dopamine, serotonin, just bang, 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 bang. Something's misfiring, and it's causing this almost, and there's a situation where you can go borderline psychotic, where these manic episodes get so bad where you actually believe God is speaking to you, or you really do believe that, you're taking some important position in the world when you're not. So you can slide into different versions of it, and that's why I want to talk about it, because in the same way that not all schizophrenics are walking around having conversations with people that aren't there, but some of them are. Not all people with bipolar disorder, when I talk to you at 8 a.m. and I'm in a good mood, by 10 a.m. I'm going to be down here. It's not necessarily how it goes. If it was, it would probably be easier to treat that way. But the issue is, like in my case, for bipolar 1, I have to just keep tabs that every 6 months, for whatever reason, I tend to start to be influenced by different things, or I open myself up to certain vulnerabilities, maybe. And then every 5 years, I tend to look for pivotal, big changes to make in my life. So it's one of those things. It's one of those things where just talking about it will help so much. But remember, borderline personality disorder, you're borderline, possibly bipolar. But right now, you're in the stage of it's just a part of your personality. It may be able to be worked out. Not saying that with proper treatment and stuff, bipolar can't be managed. But borderline personality disorder is more, I'm looking at you as a person, and some of who you are is who you're choosing to be. Right? And then you go to the bipolar side of that. Do bipolar people have the choice when they go into these manic episodes and do crazy shit? That would be the same thing as asking an alcoholic, do they have a choice? Which, bing, I'm also one of those. Yeah, you have the choice, right? Nobody makes you do anything. Whether it be an addiction or whether it be in mental health challenges, right? God's not making you do any act. Whatever imaginary thing you think you're talking to, spirits, ancestors, whatever your thing is, they're not making you do it. So your brain and the things you've entertained inside of it can cause you to act in certain ways. And you can believe certain things, and you can have a certain perception of the world that makes you act completely out of your normal self. People change all the time, and we see people pick up new religions and new relationships where they change, and things happen on a daily basis that change people. It's when it comes to bipolar disorder and alcoholism and addictions and stuff like that, it comes down to looking at a certain moment in time and then taking that person, every event that they've ever gone through in their life leading up to that one moment, all the self-analysis and the work that they've done on themselves or lack thereof, and combining it now into this moment, and the brain is making an instantaneous decision. So just like anybody else, when you drive past a bar, you would have to decide whether you're have no issue with alcohol or you're a bipolar, BP1, PTSD alcoholic who's battled through alcoholism for years. You still have to make the decision to keep driving or pull in. Your brain and the thoughts inside of your brain are not making the mechanicals of that happen. What happens is, when I'm doing the things that are good for me and I'm taking care of myself and I'm being authentic to who I truly am and I feel like I'm able to express myself in a healthy way, meaning my wants and needs for my own life, I notice that the intrusive negative thoughts, the disabling, you ain't shit, you ain't never gonna be shit type stuff doesn't happen to where I stop working. So like today, the last couple of days have been really rough for me because I've just felt super lonely. Just I don't have anyone to talk to a lot of the time, and yeah, I'm just lonely a lot. So with that, I got really low, and I noticed that I was starting to turn on music like I did back in July. And with the songs came the ideas of what does drinking look like again? And that's always going to be a part of my life, right? And that scares people when alcoholics think that, but by being afraid that an alcoholic is admitting that, you're trying to almost silence them and not tell you what's really going on. Because here's the thing, guys, the thought could come up maybe every day. The longer you get into sobriety, it doesn't really. But like me, I have five years of sobriety, and I slipped up for like a week and tried it out again. And I've been back on since then. So, I have a lot of experience with it, but I also now, the way I look at it is I have experience in relapsing. And a lot of it, I believe, is because of some of the things I deal with. Being, bipolar disorder, which is if I allow myself, this is where we take responsibility as the people who are challenged by it, right? If I allow myself to go unchecked, which I have the right to do. I'm a grown-ass man. Nobody can tell me shit, right? So if I just keep to myself in my house and I'm not speaking to people that I love and I'm not keeping in contact with them and I'm not doing my job, I'm not getting on here and doing this. Because when I was down in the dumps, feeling lonely, I almost took today off. Today's Tuesday. I usually do Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I put up an episode Sunday. I put one up Monday, and I'm recording today. So it's like I'm trying to keep myself busy by doing the things I know I'm supposed to be doing so that way we don't go back. Because whether I'm starting a manic episode with the thoughts in my head or not, I know that by doing the things I'm supposed to do, whether I feel like doing them or not, and that's the biggest thing, turning the camera on even if I don't feel like it. And if I don't feel like turning the camera on, sometimes it starts by just plugging in the mic. If I plug in the mic, I know myself, I'm going to check all the settings and make sure all the settings are right. I still don't want to go on camera. I don't feel like it. You guys can tell I'm kind of in my bums today. I don't feel like it, but I know me. I plugged in the thing. I checked the settings. Now I'm in my routine. Settings are checked. Mic check, mic check. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, well, damn. All right. Mic's hot. Well, routine says check the camera, put the SIM card in, battery, boom, boom, okay. Video check, mic check, video check, good. Well, damn, we got a show now. I've spent a whole morning dedicated to not listening to things that are going to continue those thoughts or emotional pullings. And instead, I researched what was causing it. And this isn't some, again, grandiose thing on my behalf. It doesn't do anything for anybody else that I'm keeping my shit together except for my family and, the people that are important to me. But let it be a lesson to you. When we're sliding back into the things and the ways that are comfortable to us, which I love my songs and I love my nostalgia, don't get me wrong. And that's why I think I love TikTok so much, because I can get on there and I can play with it and I can almost give it its homage and I can tip my cap to that side of myself and play around and be silly and let my inner child flow a little bit. And then I can come on here and tighten it up and be more structured, and I'm not singing and I'm not dancing and I'm not being stupid, making an asshole out of myself like I do on my TikTok channel. And then my Instagram is more a place where people can speak with me. TikTok is a wild west. I don't want to speak to people on there outside of comment sections where it's visible. And then on here, you guys can always chat in the comments, but a lot of people don't. Because I've realized when talking about mental health, people are very sensitive. Not only am I telling my story, but I'm telling a lot of your stories indirectly. The point of the show was to relate to people. Well, I think I've done that job, and I've related to a lot of people. But I am very aware that most people don't want to talk about it like I do, but y'all still want the answers. Somebody pointed out to me once, they said, Cam, if you look, your views are always solid. There's not a lot of likes, and there's not a lot of comments, which if you're looking from analytics, that's not good. That means people are watching, but they're not engaging. They go, but then you have to look at the content that's being made, right? So if you have a half-naked woman, she's also getting all these millions of views, and the likes are cut down to here because people can't admit that they're liking this. They're watching it in the background. It's hiding. It's only the people that are really trying to do the work and be held accountable that are engaging. And that changed the way I look at it to where for the longest time, I feel like with my shows and with all the content that I create, I wanted to speak to everybody, and I wanted to grow this very loud community, a movement in the Shatter movement where we would all lock arms and storm an event together and have fun and spread mental health awareness. But I realize that where that's also entirely possible, I feel like I'm still talking to people who are in very dark rooms where the only light that they may see is the computer screen or their phone screen, who have completely shut themselves off from the world, lost hope that anything is better for them, and they're not yet in the steps to even realize what the issue is, let alone start to work on it. So I'm sensitive to that because I've been that. I've been the guy who watches the video and I hear the analog come up, thumbs up, subscribe, all that, and you go, I want to, but I know everything has a digital fingerprint in today's day and age. So if I thumbs up that somewhere, it's going to be stored that I like that video. I can't have that. Not when I'm talking about having fucking bipolar disorder, and I don't even know. So in today's day and age, right, if you don't know, you just think it's something you might struggle with. I have a diagnosis, so I know. But if you are just starting to go down the road of starting to work on yourself, most of the time, the first thing you're afraid of is criticism. That's why a lot of people who gain success have imposter syndrome, and they're just waiting to be exposed because that's what's always happened in their life. They were never good enough. They were, whatever, leading to all these issues that they now have. So spreading awareness is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to say, I may be vulnerable here, because then when you admit vulnerability, you're more open to attack. But you can be vulnerable and still be strong in knowing who you are. But those two things go hand in hand together. You have to be willing to be vulnerable and go through the deep, dark shit and relive times that aren't fun and spend a lot of time alone and be lonely and realize where your problems lie with that. And realize why you make the decisions you make in your head and why your brain tells you to do certain things and or at least give you certain thoughts for actions you could take. It's all about us to gain control of that, right? And if we're going to shatter the labels and stigmas of mental health challenges, it's perfectly fine that we acknowledge what they are and the challenges they're in, but there has to be a shining light of hope, or else we're just showing up to complain or showing up to put on some sort of freak show and look how bad I can fuck my life up and put it on display for everyone. I don't think that's a good idea, because in that case I could just be any standard YouTuber doing any dumb shit. I would rather people look at me and go, that guy was a total mess and may still be a total mess, but he's done a pretty decent job and learned how to edit a video and brand himself. So I watch his shit, but he's a little damaged, that one. Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. I've got the t-shirts and jackets to prove it. So, hey, man, I love you guys so much. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope it brought some kind of value to you, and I hope maybe it gave you guys something to look at. If not in yourself, maybe somebody in your life. And I can almost guarantee you, if it's the first time, whether it be you or somebody else is hearing about some of this, saying the terms bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, these are intimidating things to people. People get very defensive and they go, well, I'm not that way and I'm not fucking crazy and all this. That's why I have the show I do, to get rid of these labels and stigmas, because it's not a bad thing to have these things. It's just a way to identify a self-identified problem. You have to identify the problem in yourself to even be willing to go talk to a doctor and be diagnosed, right? So if you're going to a doctor to be diagnosed and then you're not willing to be treated, well, you're just dumb. But there is such situations where people can be diagnosed and they're so trapped in the illness that they cannot receive the proper treatment to get better. Not necessarily that it's not at fault of their own, because by X's and O's it is. They just can't or don't have the faculties available to them to grasp hold of the lesson and see how change is actually made. I just don't think as many people are, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think people are as hopeless as we make them out to be now. I think a lot of people can be brought back from some real dark places, and I only believe that because I've seen it. I've seen it in myself. I've seen it in people I've been in jail with. I've seen it in people I've gone through rehab centers with. I'll tell you, man, like, I'm willing to put myself on camera, there's some bad motherfuckers out there that just don't have any interest. That their stories would blow you away. I'm kind of trying to speak for those people too, because they go and work general labor jobs paid under the table because they can't get jobs anywhere because they're found. We lost the camera, so that means it's time for me to wrap it up anyways. Guys, I love you so much. Go check out the Road to Redemption podcast.com. Hit that up. Like this, guys. Thumbs up the video. It helps so much when you thumbs up the video. Please do that. It helps other people find us. If you listen to us on the audio version, go on iTunes and give us a review. That helps people find it there. Hit up the Road to Redemption podcast.com for all the merch and past episodes. I think I'm going to start the blog again soon, where I'll be typing out some stuff, some articles, some findings of mine. I think maybe it'll be like a secondary sub-Insta feed where I just post up cool articles and stuff that I find in the blog section. Yeah, love y'all. I'll chat with you later.